Hi, my name is Michael Trout, and I'm going to do a talk about the Foundup Manifesto and its OIF manual. So, what is the Foundup Manifesto and the OIF manual? Well, it's a book that I'm writing, and it's a book in progress. Now, it's not a kind of book that you can just knock out, because what I'm dealing with is a completely new paradigm shift on how to do startups. Startups that I call Foundups. A startup is an institutional vehicle. What I mean by that, and what other means by that, an institution is an organized structure, and a company has an organized structure. A Foundup is a strategic initiative that aims to become this organized structure, this startup. And these strategic initiatives take place under our corporate umbrella or one of our affiliates. And it uses a framework, a schema called the Open Incubator Framework, OIF. Okay? So, what is OIF? Well, OIF is a systematic process of taking, hey, aha, I've got this idea, and moving it to becoming a startup. Now, let me pause you here, because the first thing we need to do is define terms, and that's what Plato taught us, in 600 BC. So, do you know what a startup is? Probably not. Dave McClure doesn't, Eric Ries doesn't, Steve Blank doesn't. Now, they understand what a company is, and they understand how a company is successful, and they also understand customers. But they don't have a definition of a real definition of a startup. The only individual, I believe, maybe this is egotistical for me to say, is we do. I spent about a year really just focused on this one question: what is a startup? And I'll tell you what a startup is. A startup is a legal entity. All right? It's a legal entity and new venture that is providing a service, a solution, or product that either has a niche customer base supporting it financially, all right, or validating it, or seed investors willing to get it to either its validating, supportive customer base. That's a very succinct definition of a startup, and I challenge you to come up with something better. Basically, with this definition, I can hold it up to any idea, anything that you're doing, and tell you whether or not you're a startup or a Foundup. So what's a Foundup? A Foundup is a founder like myself, all right, or anyone else, with an idea for a lean startup. Well, a startup we've defined, right? So a lean startup is actually a kind of startup that's focused on the customer. Bootstrapping, or desiring to bootstrap, a prototype using our Open Incubator Framework, right? Our schema. So basically, a Foundup is the idea to the startup. Now, we define the moment a Foundup becomes a startup, we define as really its private placement. Now, that's a little bit of a violation of my definition, because by the time you're a private placement, you are basically, or actually let me redefine it. We validate it as the moment our feasibility study, our private placement feasibility study, is a go. Which means that we know we can raise anywhere between $2 million to $30 million for a Foundup. We've done the private placement feasibility study, and that's something we will do, all right? National Community Development Services does capital campaign feasibility studies to raise in excess of, anywhere from $2 million all the way up to $100 million in funding for what? Strategic initiatives. Haha, you see the tie-in. So I'm tying into that schema, that framework of what NCAS is doing is for nonprofits, we're going to do for Foundups. Make sense? So ultimately, the moment that our private placement feasibility study is a go is the moment we, basically, the Foundup hatches from outside of our corporation. Until then, for the most part, near the ends of the stages, and a Foundup has basically 7 levels when you hit level 7, that means you have validated your private placement feasibility. Okay, you've done a private placement feasibility study and it's a go. All right, that's level 7. Boom, you are now, congratulations, you are now a startup, and you're going to succeed because you've got that money, right? So that is why I can tell you that Foundups are going to be more successful than a startup, right? Because unlike a startup, we have a very specific schema, 7 levels of progress that a Foundup moves through before it becomes a startup. Which means this, as an investor, if you invest in Foundups, you're pretty much guaranteed to success. And not only that, we do something else that's really cool, right? And I talk about this in the OIF manual. This talk is really about the OIF manual. I'm sharing some stuff. And the way we do this is that we allow you to hedge your bet. So if you want to if you're like, hey, I'm interested in this Foundup, I'm going to make a contribution, not an investment, a contribution. We will basically treat that contribution in Foundup dollars that then at times 10 Foundup dollars to buy you in at a seat at our private placement, should it happen. It may not happen, okay? So there's no guarantee. You contribute $10,000, we treat that as $100,000 at our private placement table when it happens, should it happen. But there's no guarantee. But here's the good news. If it doesn't happen, it's no big deal. Because you can take times 2 your investment and put it into any Foundup that is going into its private placement. No, you're not getting the times 10, but heck, you're getting twice your investment, right, to buy in at the private placement. Now that's a pretty sweet deal. So this is, I've shared with you a little bit of our framework. Foundups only has 2 roles. They have advisors, they have team members. We don't have stupid titles. That's an institution thing, right? Also, we allow individuals to participate when they want. I mean, Foundups are hobbies. Don't pull out your hair. Do a Foundup, do your day job. When the Foundup is ready, it will hatch, right? It will develop. So I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I hope you will basically become a stakeholder, buy my book, get some Foundup dollars, stakeholders, contribution, right? And help me in my quest to make entrepreneurs fun and easy. Because in reality, 99% of pre-seed startups fail to become early stage startups. I'll say that again. Pre-seed meaning before they get any money. Okay, so a startup that is pre-seeded has a 99% chance of failure to becoming an early stage startup, which is a funded startup or a customer validated startup. Okay, early stage. And a whole bunch of early stage startups fail. They fall through the chasm. But that's probably a whole nother talk. So my name is Michael Trout. I am the founder of the Foundup and the inventor of the Open Incubator Framework. And I'm launching, or I have launched, the first Open Google. I invite you, anyone you know, be part of my corporation, Foundups Corp.